Three friends on surfing excursion in Mexico brutally murdered during carjacking that went terribly wrong. Welcome to our Retire Early lifestyle. We don't want to bring you this terrible news, but we think everyone needs to know that even groups of men traveling together can become targets of crime and can be murdered over absolutely nothing. Imagine how much more vulnerable a female solo traveler would be in a foreign country. Or even women traveling together thinking they are safer. But we won't digress. This video is about three male friends, two Australians and an American from San Diego who happened to be just 3 months away from getting married to the love of his life. Unfortunately, the three young men struck tragedy about 60 miles south of the border. This is what we're going to give you our perspective on today. Imagine taking time off from the 9-to-5 rat race to take a much-needed vacation, and you decide to take a surfing trip with your buddies. Mexico sounded great this time of year, great weather, big surf, and not too far to drive from San Diego. Many people do this very thing on a regular basis. There are lots of Americans that come to this part of Mexico every year with their RVs for winter camping and also some van lifers, etc. We used to go on van camping trips for weeks at a time from the Pacific Northwest down to California for our mini vacations years ago, and we were also full-time travel trailer nomads for a number of years, so we have an affinity for keeping up on these trends. In Baja, California, Mexico, which is where this took place, we frequently would see Americans with their dune buggies heading south of the border for fun. It's not that it's a rare thing, and yet one just never knows when their turn at Russian roulette has come up. And so this is how an innocent surfing trip went terribly wrong. On April 26th, 2024, the three men headed off in their pickup truck for Baja, California, Mexico, just outside of Ensenada to a popular beach with surfers, San Miguel Beach. It is here they would do some surfing, sunning, swimming, and camping. You know, just fun water sports and nature stuff while hanging out together. For those who do not know, there are many secluded campground sites in this area and dirt roads winding around in the hills. We suspect they were camping out in a secluded area because of the details of the story, which we'll get into in a moment. The plan was to then head up north to another touristic beach called Rosarita Beach, where they were going to rent an Airbnb and hang out and surf for a few more days before heading back home to San Diego. But they never made it to Rosarita. We have been told by local Mexicans that the most stolen type of vehicle in this area is the Chevy and Ford full-size pickup, and also the Chevy Colorado and Nissan pickup trucks. And in fact, they are so popular with thieves here in Baja, Mexico, that they have been known to kill the driver if they want the truck bad enough. This is why we decided against buying any brand of pickup truck and instead opted for the low-key minivan. Unfortunately, the story everyone is talking about is the pickup truck these three men were driving, but in particular, the tires on the truck were apparently to kill for. Let us remind the viewers that the truck the men were driving was a Chevy Colorado pickup truck. It may seem hard to believe that someone would kill for a pickup truck, but that's what is being reported in the news. This area of Mexico is pristine and natural. The natural beauty and quietness is surely a temptation for any nature lover, camper, surfer, etc. Anyone that loves the outdoors could easily be drawn to this kind of an area, and the natural beauty of it calls out to many who unfortunately have in times past and continue to this day to put their lives at risk of mortal danger from unsavory characters. As the story is reported, a cell phone belonging to one of the three men was located by a Mexican woman who was apprehended and interrogated, who said the two criminals were going to steal the truck for the wheels.
They found the cell phone of one of these young men that was murdered on this woman who apparently participated in this kidnapping murder. So once they found her, they were able to identify two more individuals, and it appears, according to the Attorney General on Friday night, that it appears that what they were after were these were their pickup. They wanted to get their tires and just kind of change the tires. They thought they would be able to do it without them knowing it, and once they defended themselves and they tried to stop this from happening, apparently, according to the Attorney General, this was on Friday night, they killed them.
It seems like such a violent escalation, doesn't it? I mean, are these kinds of criminal acts common in this particular area? We know that it is violent, and there have been warnings for tourists travelling through there.
There is warning for tourists, and this area, this part of the country is on the U.S.-Mexican border, and we have a lot of American tourists that come to surf. It's a beautiful I can't even describe to you how beautiful it is. And there are warnings that you have to be careful and preferably not to be alone in some of these areas. And it was isolated. There was nobody else was there, and it is violent, and it is surprising, and even from Mexican standards, this is actually very, very shocking. But Mexico's going through a relatively high violence wave right now.
By the way, all three suspects have now been arrested in the violent attack, and oddly enough, they share the same last name and we think are probably siblings working together. In a nutshell, perhaps a bit on the tardy side, the three men went surfing for the day, and when they walked back to their campsite, they found the attackers trying to steal their tires. The men tried to stop them, and the Mexicans shot the three men in the head and then threw their bodies down a deep well about 4 miles away. These horrific murders have shocked the people of Ensenada, and for good reason. It is shocking and terribly sad for the parents of these three young men. We know there is crime everywhere in the world, and comparing violent crime in Detroit or Chicago doesn't bring these three men back from the grave. What it does is hide the elephant in the living room for the next travelers that believe they'll be safe and nothing bad will happen to them. Crime is different in Latin America, and we need to talk about how North Americans are targets that can get caught up in this violence when they travel and live abroad. Could this terrible tragedy been avoided? Possibly had the truck been parked in a less of a remote area. Obviously, there were no people around when the bad apples decided to steal the tires from a pickup and then suddenly get noticed and kill the owners. Did you know that most violent crimes, not petty crimes, but violent crimes against tourists and expats abroad happen in secluded areas such as highways and off-the-beaten-path roads, secluded hiking trails, secluded beach areas, and in this case, an undesignated secluded campsite just outside of the city of Ensenada. Yes, we see the pattern very clearly. These opportunistic crimes happen when very few people are nearby, so these sick bad apples think they can get away with their crimes. Most of the time when we go abroad, expats and tourists are in the right place at the right time and nothing happens to them. But some of the time, expats are in the wrong place and at the wrong time, and a tragic crime occurs. This is why we report on crime abroad against expats and tourists, because it does happen, and we all should be aware that it does happen on a quite a regular basis. Travelers need to know what types of crimes and how best to avoid them. Petty crime happens everywhere abroad, all the time. Violent crimes have patterns, usually involves thievery, drugs, sex, and other violent episodes in secluded areas and in personal lodgings. Just recently, the U.S. State Department put out warnings to reconsider travel to the northern Baja region of Mexico because of violent crimes and kidnappings. We don't tell people what to do or where to go or not go. We have enjoyed Baja, Mexico for several years ourselves, but we don't do anything whatsoever that would make us to become targets, and we never walk alone or even drive in off the beaten path areas of Mexico. It's just a bad idea.
There's been some security issues here that I'm going to talk about. Yeah, we haven't been to the beach in a while. I'm really glad to be here, and there's security here now, armed security. I don't know if you saw it. Oh, there it is. There's one right there. We just talked to one of them, and a lot of our viewers know we've been here going on 3 years, and there's never been armed security, and there hasn't been a need for it. Matter of fact,
they're all over now.
Matter of fact, we've talked to friends, American friends that we met in Ecuador, that we've always talked about going to Mexico. And of course, you know, oh no, don't do that. That's really bad there, the crime. And it's true, it is. But we found a spot here where, you know, at least for the last couple of years, there hasn't been any stressful issues. But now we've been away from the beach, I was getting ready to say, for so many months, and came back and saw this change. And so we decided, well, let's talk to them and see what they say. And he said there's been some robberies now, and so now they're permanently stationed here, and they are armed security, and you see them every 100 feet. And there's always been a kind of a presence of vagrants and such. It's been harmless, but the last few times it seemed like it was starting to get dicier than dicey, and so we stopped coming. That's what we did. And so we're glad to see the armed security. And so no, we're not promoting Mexico. You know, a lot of people know that there's a lot of security issues in a lot of places, but there's more than that. There's so much, and not just Mexico, everywhere. As you know, if you've seen any of the videos, I'm not going to go there and talk about that stuff again.
What we're saying is if you move or take a vacation to Mexico, or any country for that matter, it takes more than just watching your surroundings. That's a given. You need to understand the types of crimes and avoid them at all costs. We've shared so much on our channel about this. For 13 years, we have avoided 90% of crimes by not engaging in this kind of behavior that most tourists, expats, and travelers take for granted. And just knowing that is acknowledging instead of denying the types of crimes that exist in Latin America and avoiding the potential of violence to happen. So you see, it's not about I feel safe and I watch my surroundings. It's much, much more than that. Okay? On this channel, we sometimes report on crimes against tourists and expats traveling and living abroad. These videos are geared toward the retiree, traveler, and tourist that are already living abroad or want to go abroad. If you would like to report on crime happening in the USA, or you want to compare crime of the US with Mexico, you should make videos on your own channel to receive the largest possible viewership so you can help people. Leaving random comments on our videos about the rampant crime in the USA is not the best place to bring awareness to your audience. Well, that's it for today's video. We hope you consider and reflect upon some of what we have shared with you in this video today. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.